Next up, and we're going to compact a whole lot of information into this week's market segment. So much going on. Weather is one big story that we're following. We'll have Al's forecast in a few minutes, but first, our analyst is tracking the weather too and seeing how yields and crop conditions could be affected. Plus, we'll get a look into where corn and soybean prices may be headed, and we'll catch you up on some updates to the Renewable Fuel Standard. Analyst and author Elaine Kub joined me on Wednesday and started by giving a harvest update where she is.
Well, harvest is not really happening here at all. And speaking of Nebraska, Nebraska is actually the rare, almost normal spot. I think in the latest crop progress report, they were 12% harvested instead of 19%. So looking all across the corn belt, Nebraska is about as normal as it gets. Illinois is like 33 percentage points behind their average pace. Here in South Dakota, I'd say we're about 3 weeks behind what we would have been expecting to be in the last few dry years. This, of course, has not been a dry year, but the soybeans that folks have been trying to do, they've been, really tough. It's been hard to do, but folks have been going at them because we've got this big storm coming, and that is just making everybody filled with dread.
And Elaine, I heard you interviewed on another show last week, and you made mention of a harvest rally. You think that's around the corner?
Yeah, potentially. I think that we've seen the general trend of the markets start to move upward now ever since that last grain stocks report. And I think the expectation has been for a harvest rally all throughout the summer, just because the problems that have been happening with this crop, with the yield, and even with the acreage, how much of it is being lost to silage, for instance, and won't even go on to the grain supply and demand tables. All of that is not really going to be known to the market until harvest really gets going. So it's not going to be reflected in this next USDA report because they just don't have enough information because harvest is so far behind. So we just continue to wait for that slow trickle of information, but that slow trickle of information, as long as it remains bullish, I think will keep this trend pointed upwards.
And you mentioned weather just a minute ago. As we're recording this on a Wednesday morning, forecast calling for snow, freezing temperatures to the Midwest and into the Dakotas. And we've talked about how harvest is delayed, or in your case, not really happening at all. What are the effects the storm would have on yields and crop quality?
Yeah, it's not pretty. It's not. That's why everyone is just filled with dread, and we really don't know yet. If it was just a matter of the freezing temperatures, this is mid-October. This should not be a surprise, and I think the industry has been prepared for all the late planted corn to be harvested, potentially more wet than it would otherwise be, to have their drying facilities ready to go. If it was just the cold temperatures, that would be one thing. But we're also expecting a lot of snow and wind. So to the degree that snow maybe damages some soybeans that are still on the field, which is a lot of them, or that the wind perhaps lodges some corn, it could very easily dramatically extend the length of this harvest, which was already going to be very long, and I'm sure we'll be harvesting in December.
Okay, Elaine, price outlook for corn and soybeans, where do you think they'll go?
Well, I think they're going to continue headed up, but I will point out that on soybeans, they're really only about 20 cents away from that June high. The September contract, hit that high at about $9.48. We're really only about 20 cents away. So I am bullish. I do think we'll have a harvest rally, but I'm also encouraging folks to sell, to take the rally that we've had already and get as sold as they want to be, especially if you're going to have cash needs here in the next few months. This is a good opportunity to reward that, especially in the soybeans, to be ready in the next couple 20 cents to reward that rally. Corn, however, it could keep going here, especially if we continue to see, as I mentioned, the poor yield reports from the harvest.
Is there anything that you're watching internationally?
Yeah, soybeans, again, we try to get a little bit bullish based on Brazilian planting at this time of year, and they are dry, so that has been supportive. It has helped the rally continue. If we see the Brazilian currency continue not to fall to any new lows, that will also be supportive, but all of those things are really susceptible to quick changes. We could easily see a rain come into the Brazilian forecast and take away that bullish argument.
And also big news for biofuels. Late last week, we got the announcement that there's an agreement with the Renewable Fuel Standard. So do you think this sets some things into motion for growth as it pertains to the ethanol industry?
Well, it was good news, like you mentioned, Troy, but it wasn't everything that the industry could want. I mean, I think there was the potential for that announcement to be some expansion of the infrastructure, more blender pumps at the fuel stations. That would be important, but all they really did was bring that back to the 15 billion gallon mark where, you know, the mandate was already there. And what we've seen actually in the market as a response to that announcement is the RIN prices have actually dropped. So to me, that suggests that the market is viewing this announcement with great skepticism and potentially even disappointment. It really is not what the ethanol industry needed to have a boost, and certainly we haven't seen the corn market respond with a big boost just from that RFS statement.
And what about small refinery exemptions, or SREs? How are they impacted by this announcement?
Well, we are still seeing the same amount of ethanol as the original mandate. So it still is not the standing up to the fuel or to the oil and gas industry that we wanted, you know, the government to make for us.
And Elaine, wrapping up here, it's been a tough year for producers. Harvest may be shaping up to be the same way. Give us some advice on what we can do marketing or risk management wise.
You know, I know that I've been bullish, and I think a lot of your analysts that you have on the show have been banging on this gong about the harvest rally, just not to get too optimistic, especially when you look out towards 2020. This could be an opportunity to look really far ahead and consider that someday we will have the yields that are expected, and someday we will have all the acres that are expected, and it would be a very bearish scenario. So to not get too bullish about any small announcements from China or any this or that, and to remember to be looking ahead and marketing ahead.